Hey everybody, Sherri and Mylinda here again. We're at 1775
Pit Barbecue
again today. You know, there's some stuff in the news that everybody's hearing about and people are kind of freaking out just a little bit about. The market's kind of, you know, taking a step back. Everyone's taking a breath till they see what happens. So we're hoping to shed a little bit of light on some things today for you as far as this buyer representation business you've been hearing about, and the buyer fee payment thing that you've been hearing about.
There's a lot of stuff in the news, and some of it might actually be correct.
But it's just hard to tell. Anyway, I was in a class all day long yesterday that gave us a little bit more clarity on it. What the change means to buyers and sellers here in our area, and every area across the whole nation. This is the National Association of Realtors rules. So no matter where you go, to have representation as a buyer, you're going to have to sign that buyer representation agreement up front. Some states never had this buyer representation agreement, and some agents, I'm kind of guilty of this too, where I didn't fill out that buyer representation agreement until we were submitting an offer. But now that's going to have to be signed up front. And the reason that is so that you are completely clear and you completely understand where that broker fee is going to come from and exactly what representation means to you. It's far better to have representation on a transaction than it is to go in as an unrepresented buyer. If you're an unrepresented buyer, you would contact a listing agent. They would open the door for you. What they can tell you is factual information about the house. They can't point out any other things that they see. Here's a big crack that looks like there may be a foundation issue, or any other thing like that would be what we would tell you if we were representing you. To, hey, these are flags, you might want to have that looked at. Things that would be pitfalls that it might end up costing you a whole ton of money. So it's best to have representation. Another effect of not having, well, yeah, I think that the listing agent could show you because they are representing their seller. They wouldn't have to have anything. If sub-agency is not a thing here in Texas, most brokers don't accept that. So we are representing the seller unless we have an agreement to represent you. So anything you say, we have a duty to report to the sellers. We don't keep that information confidential. Whereas if you're represented, anything you say is confidential. And if I'm representing you and not the seller, then anything I hear from the seller or the seller's agent, I can let you know immediately. So, you know, you can use that to your benefit in negotiating a contract. The list goes on. There's so many, really, so many reasons why it's best to be represented.
The bottom line is, it's important really to sign the buyer's representation agreement, because otherwise, if you think that that is a way to save money, I don't think that that is going to prove to be the case. And you're also not going to have somebody looking out for your best interest, a professional who does this every day, looking out for your best interest on the biggest purchase of your life for most people.
It could end up costing you way more than any little increment that you might have to pay toward broker compensation.
You need somebody looking out for you who does this transaction every day as a routine part of their business, because you don't know what you don't know.
The market's changed, the paperwork's changed, problems with houses change.
And it's not the seller's agent's job to look out for you.
They're not going to tell you everything.
They're not going to tell you everything. They're representing the seller.
So super important. And if you have questions at all on this buyer representation agreement, please do, you know, comments in the comments, or just reach out to us, send us a message. We'll be happy to go over it more in depth with you and explain more about what representation means to you as a buyer. Besides, it's really best to have someone looking out for your best interests. It can save you money, effort, time,
heartbreak potentially.
Heartbreak.
So
exactly.
So I mean, it's a conversation. It's a conversation to have with Sherri. She will explain everything so that you understand it. Go over everything in that agreement, so that you understand what's going on. Because the main thing is for you to be informed. And this is about making sure you're actually informed about all aspects of the transaction.
Yes. Now the next big elephant in the room is about the broker compensation. So on this buyer tenant representation agreement, it's going to spell out how much your agent, your buyer's representative, will get paid for performing the work to get you from point A to closing and moving into your house, your agent's going to try first to get that money from the seller. Lots of sellers are still giving the full compensation, let me put it that way. If they're only giving a half or a third or a quarter or some portion of it, we'll try to get everything that we can from the seller first, and then what the buyer would owe to their representative, who is saving them money and keeping them safe from legal liability and
negotiating price for them and all of that.
Yes. There are like 250 things that agents do for you that you don't really know because it's automatic for us and we make it look easy, but you wouldn't know it. Anyway, so what you would end up owing is that commitment minus what the seller will pay. A lot of times it's going to be zero, but you know, sometimes it'll be full and sometimes it'll be meeting somewhere in the middle. That's the way it is.
Yep.
You can make your offer compensate for that. You know, we may be in a competitive situation, so nobody really knows how it's going to go yet. We're just kind of all out there trying. So what we know right now is we're first going to try to get it from the seller. I'm going to coach my sellers that we need buyer's agents. We don't need unrepresented buyers because that can open us up to lawsuits and things like that. So I'm going to coach my people that it's good to at least give some of it. It may not be what everyone thinks they might be used to. I don't even know that. Everything's negotiable. So it's going to be up to the buyer's agent on my listings, up to the buyer's agents to submit this request on the appropriate forms to request this reimbursement or this compensation from the seller. So we're all feeling it out. You're going to have to like bear with us a little bit till we get this learning curve taken care of, but just do know that we're not automatically going to stick you with the whole thing. We're going to try to get it from the other party as well.
And one of the main takeaways should be that this is brand new for everyone, including agents who've been doing this for years.
Yes.
The seller's agents, everybody is still feeling out how this is going to translate into real life. So the important thing is for you to find a buyer's agent to represent you who you are comfortable with, because you're going to be having conversations about this.
When you're going to want someone who has experience with and extra training with negotiation. This is a huge negotiation. It's going to save you whatever that amount is. It could save you that amount on your bottom line.
Do not be penny wise and pound foolish about this, because I think that there may be an idea around there that you are going to save money somehow by not having yourself represented, and the risk involved in that. I hope you have a very high risk tolerance if you choose to go that route, because again, there is so much that you don't know.
This is true. And you know, typically the buyer writes the offer. So if you are not represented and you don't have someone helping you write a contract up, you're gonna have to pay an attorney to help you write the contract up.
Unless you just decide you're gonna write your own contract. So,
which
there's a reason there are professionals in this field, and professionals have professional fees.
We would love to work for free to take care of you, but we have to eat, and you know, my dogs need food and treats and, you know, stuffed animals to shred. So if you have questions, again, please do let us know. We'll probably talk some more about this as things unfold and we start having experience with it a little bit. Yes,
it is still evolving right now. But we are in the new normal, so just expect to be to have discussions about signing representation agreements before you go see any houses.
And I had someone call me last night. She wants to work with me, is what she said. She's going to use me, but she doesn't want to sign an agreement yet. We haven't had our sit down and talk about it yet. But I told her anybody's going to have you sign it if they're going to work with you. And she said, well, I saw a bunch of houses yesterday and I didn't have to sign anything. If I'm the listing agent, I'm working for my seller. I can show the house to you without representing you. When it comes down to cutting nuts, as we say.
Yes, writing contracts, examining houses. And that is a very good point. You can go to open houses by yourself without buyer representation. But keep in mind that agent at that house represents the seller. They are not going to be on your side about anything, and they're not required to disclose things to you because they're not your agent.
They're going to talk to you and try to get information out of you to tell their seller, which could end up hurting you in your negotiation in the long run.
Exactly.
So, like we said, we'll talk about this more. We just wanted to kind of go over it and let you know that it's across the whole country. In order to go and see houses with an agent that you choose because you trust them, you're going to have to sign that representation agreement at the beginning rather than when you submit the offer. This cements the relationship. It makes it so that I'm not just the seller's agent, I'm your agent, and it makes it upfront so you understand what that broker fee is all about. That was the whole lawsuit thing, was that, well, part of it was that buyers didn't feel like they had a choice in it, or
or that they really understood how it worked.
They didn't know how it works.
So it's going to be very clear how it works now.
Exactly.
Yes.
We're telling you. So that involves you signing that agreement. That's just how it's going to be from now on. So Mylinda's here to talk to us about the changes in veteran loan programs, because historically on these government-backed loans, buyers weren't allowed to pay broker fees, and there's some other expenses they can't pay too, like the wood destroying insect inspection.
Well, they can pay that broker fees. So it's always been that the VA buyer couldn't pay an agent fee, and that really wasn't ever an issue, because it was always assumed, just in standard practice, that was going to come from the seller side of the transaction. So now there's been a change with VA. They released that on August 11th, that now the veteran buyer can pay the commission. And, woohoo, now you can pay an extra fee. So great news, I guess, and the idea was to make sure that the veteran buyer can stay competitive, because there have been just some changes coming to make sure that VA loan offers stay competitive. So yes, that's great. You are now able to pay all the same money that any other buyer can pay. So that's a win, kind of. But again, we're going to be looking at those buyer's agent representations, and your agent is still going to be trying to get as much of that as possible from the seller. That doesn't mean that we want our veteran clients to be paying the commission, but it means if you've got your heart set on a house, that just going to be part of that equation is you paying some or all of that fee, you now can.
So is it possible for veterans to get gift funds to use towards these?
Yes, absolutely. Veterans can still continue to get gift funds for their transaction. The gift funds can cover the agent commission. One thing I've been asked is, well, can the agent commission that the veteran might have to pay, can that just be rolled into the loan amount? And the answer is no, it can't. The closing cost fee that can be rolled into the loan amount is the funding fee, the VA's funding fee, and that's not changing. So you have to pay that at closing. So
here's a scenario that I've done with lots of my veteran buyers. In order to get some of their closing costs paid by the seller, what we would do is increase the offer by that amount and then put it into the seller paid closing costs for the buyer. And there's a line, it's called 12A1B.
Yes.
That's where we would put where the seller is contributing to your closing costs as a buyer. So for my veterans, we would increase the offer by that amount and then put your closing money into that 12A1B line. Is that still going to be, can we do that? The only way that would work is if it would still appraise with that amount on top of it.
And the guidance right now is that yes, you can. Now we're going to have that buyer's agent commission as a separate line on the closing disclosure, right? So it is going to be specified that it is its own separate closing costs now. So it can go to, the guidance right now is yes.
It's not going to be on 12A1B. It'll be part of a separate addendum, actually.
Yes, it'll be a separate
same
addendum.
Principle. It'll be, but increase the offer by that amount in order for the seller to pay that.
It goes into the whole appraisal equation. Yeah, that fee does still, yes.
So we know it's confusing. We know it sounds scary and people are panicking about it. It's really not that bad. It's really, this form has always been part of our business as long as I've been an agent. Now it's, back in history they didn't have it, but when agency was established in Texas, this form became a thing, and you've been doing contracts. You've probably been signing these. You should have been signing these if you're an
You
agent.
just may have been signing it later in the process, not before you saw that first house. And now it's going to be a rule that everyone has to sign it before you see the first house.
So if you're meeting an agent cold and you don't know how they are, if you're going to click, if you're going to work well together, you can do an agreement for one day or 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. You can sign that agreement, but it's a protection for you and for the agent to have it spelled out where that broker fee is coming from and what that relationship means between you and the agent, so you can get all the information that you need. So
that's the way you as the buyer can kind of protect yourself a little bit and make sure you're going to wind up working with the agent you want to, is you can specify a shorter time frame on that initial buyer agreement.
Yeah.
And then y'all can extend it or sign a new one later if you need to.
So we have a little bit of time to develop the relationship. Now, we foresee some abuse of that happening, and that's really not fair to sign a one-day agreement with one agent and then go use another agent for your contract. Please use some discretion on that. Don't waste our time.
Right.
That's just not fair to, you know, get us out there in hopes that we're going to do this. Anyway, we will put that property on a list that we'll give to you. And when the buyer's agreement expires, that house still, if you go back and buy it, or a relative of you, yours goes back and buys it, then we'll still be covered. So that's a protection for us. So we don't spend so much time going and showing properties to people who end up going with someone else or with some flat fee broker or something like that. If you're going to use another agent, have that other agent show you the houses. Please.
Yes. And you can go have conversations with agents, have phone calls with agents before you go look at any houses.
This is true. Getting a buyer's agent should be just like getting a seller's agent now. You should go and have a conversation with them, feel them out. They should be presenting to you information about the market, information about what value they're going to provide to you in the transaction. You should get a feeling whether they are competent and experienced and are going to handle your business really well, or you'll get an idea if they're a newbie or someone who just really doesn't care. They're in it for the commission. You know what I mean? Commission breath is what we call that.
You can get a good idea of whether you've got the right fit or not before y'all ever go look at a house. And then you don't have to sign anything to have conversations with people.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, we'll be back to explain more as we go and feel it out and see how things are going. But if you have questions for Mylinda about how this is going to work on the veteran side, on the VA loan or the Texas Veteran Land Board loans, reach out and we'll get the message to her. Or if you have questions about representation and that broker fee, let me know, and I'll be glad to sit down and talk with you about all of it all day long.
Happy Red Friday.
Yeah, happy Red Friday. Bye, y'all.